I don't know about you, but it seems to me that every day the world is becoming more and more divided. Last time, I talked about the divide between men and women in what some people call the gender war. But after reflecting on that video, I've come to realize that there's also a much larger battle happening at the same time. Gen Z is trapped in the middle of a culture war, where people are constantly fighting for little victories over each other all the time. And this isn't really a Gen Z thing, but I do think that the non-stop cultural warfare has been something uniquely haunting our young adult years. We're walking into a fight that we never started, but everyone is forcing us to pick a side. While we're still trying to figure out our lives, others are trying to convince us to blame our struggles on someone else. But before we continue, Raid Shadow Legends is back, and this time they're teaming up with Paramount for their new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collab. Raid is a cross-platform game with a ton of content, and they keep adding more. From now until November 13th, you can get all 6 new TMNT Champions, starting with Michelangelo. Kinda takes me back to my childhood. Just log in for 7 days and he's all yours. He spreads debuffs, trash talks his enemies, and dodges their attacks. They're also coming through with Raph, Leo, Donatello, April, and of course, Shredder. And if you collect all 6 champions, you also unlock a special bonus reward. But that's not all. You can also use these 6 promo codes to claim a free legendary champion to boost your squad. And on top of that, you'll instantly unlock a huge starter pack that comes with the epic champion Tagoar from the Orc faction. And once you reach level 15, you'll unlock another champion, Fayne. So what are you waiting for? Join my clan Suburban and download Raid using the QR code on screen or the link in the description. Shout out to Raid for sponsoring this video. And now, back to business. People are dissatisfied with the way life is currently, and they want things to change, but they don't exactly know what's causing these problems. So instead, they pick scapegoats to blame things on. It's easy to look at something and say, if this thing wasn't in my life, things would be better. For some people, those things are minorities, immigrants, women, and other marginalized groups. And for others, they're figures like politicians or media personalities. So on both sides, they celebrate when these so-called threats are removed. Some would even prefer if by force, in order to send some kind of message. However, the target is ever changing. The solutions to our problems are far more complex than simply removing a person or a group of people. So we remain forever dissatisfied with the way things are going. We constantly feel like we're under attack and use that as justification to attack others. That's what this culture war is. As Gen Z continues to grow up, we're facing our own set of challenges that don't always seem fair to us. Despite being a generation with more education and resources than those before us, many of us are struggling just to find our footing in the adult world. Jobs won't hire us, but then complain that our generation is lazy and doesn't want to work. Money is tight, but bills are high. And on top of it all, we're lonely and sad because men and women can't get along. It feels like no matter what you do, the expectations for young adults only get higher. But at the same time, the opportunities are becoming more scarce. We're tired, frustrated, and angry. But no one out there is looking for solutions. They just want new soldiers to help fight for their cause. And the young Gen Z mind is the newest weapon in the culture war. Man, this sucks. I got ghosted by my date and rejected from my dream job all in the same week. When are things gonna get better? What now? Listen, I already told you I'd have the rent by... Who are you? Oh, well, I'm Chad Tradington, and it sounds like you're tired of the status quo and want things to change. Well, yeah, I do. Can you really help? Of course. I'm here with all the answers to your problems. Well, I got stood up on a date this week. Do you know why dating is so hard these days? Well, it's that darn feminism. Really? I thought women's rights were a good thing. Of course not. Women making their own decisions is never good. That's why we used to not let them vote. I guess that really makes sense when I don't think about it. Do you know why it's so hard to find a job too? Well, that's because of diversity. They're giving all the jobs to black people. Really? Is that true? Who cares? Everyone knows all black people are lazy and unqualified. That's why they need DEI. Well, I have no way of challenging that statement, so it must be true. Exactly. Now let me tell you about immigrants. For Gen Z, a lot of us did what we were supposed to do, but we don't feel like we're where we're supposed to be. So we're left sitting here confused and searching for answers. Gen Z didn't start the culture war, but we've inherited it. We grew up and suddenly found ourselves in the middle of an ongoing battle. We don't even know who we're supposed to be fighting or what we're fighting about. When I was reflecting on the gender war, I realized that for a lot of younger Gen Z guys, when it comes to women, they don't even know where the hostility comes from. They just know that they grew up and suddenly all the girls hated the guys. You're confused and hurt because you're getting attacked in a fight that you didn't start. And that's the thing about the culture war. Because we're fighting battles we have no actual stake in, everyone feels like a victim in some way. You don't know how you ended up in the battle, but you know you need to defend yourself. And yet these people in the culture war aren't interested in offering us solutions. Instead, they want you to feel like you're constantly under attack so they can justify sending hate in the other direction. Because they came for you first, so why wouldn't you retaliate? You're only defending yourself. There's this weird selective outrage where the same people who endorse something one day turn around and condemn it the next. People will attack you and then blame you for hitting back. We go back and forth with each other every day and then pretend like we don't know who threw the first punch. So when bad things happen, we get to point our fingers and say, our side would never do this, when in fact, your side has indeed done that too. Culture warriors don't have values or principles. Instead, they try to score moral victories over people by constantly contradicting themselves and moving the goalpost. It's mentally exhausting because you feel like you're being gaslit. It's obvious to anyone where the inconsistencies are, but the burden of proof is on those willing to call it out. And even when you throw their own words back at them, they just lie about it anyway. I've noticed a big part of the culture war involves being a contrarian. People will take the side of something insane just because they don't want to agree with you or admit that you're right. Someone could say, I support helping blind old ladies cross the street. And some random guy will be like, well, I support hitting blind old ladies with buses. What? Why would you support something like that? Because it's not fair. Why should blind old ladies get special treatment? Because they're blind and old. Well, I don't agree with it. Okay, well, even if you don't agree with me, why would you support something that's actively trying to harm them? Well, I don't really agree with hitting them with buses. I think helping them cross the street is actually a good thing. Okay, so why not just say that? Because then I will have to admit that I'm wrong. And I can never be wrong. Why not? Everyone's wrong sometimes. Because it's bad for my ego. Seriously? Gen Z as a generation has grown up in a more progressive climate. Since we were kids, we've been taught things like smoking is bad, men and women should be equal, don't be racist. And I think for the most part, we all agree on these things. At least we used to. But in recent years, there's been a growing number of people who want you to see this kind of progress as a threat. They want you to see equality as injustice and inclusion as replacement. We aren't adding more seats to the table, we're kicking people out to make more room. And they want you to think that if you don't kick others out first, you'll be the one left standing on the outside. I think it's ironic that we often complain about boomers being a selfish generation that only look out for themselves, while we're watching ourselves do the same as we fight for what's left. The culture war never ends because you're forced to make an enemy out of everyone. Now that we're the adults, even children are under attack as people debate the value of their lives against the cost of their ideals. We're more interested in running defense for the people doing the harm instead of protecting the ones being harmed. People have unlimited excuses for why the people they support didn't actually mean what they said, but offer zero compassion for the people who challenge them. You feel powerless sometimes because no one takes you seriously because you're still young, and you can't even rely on the people you vote for to do the right thing anymore. Even the government itself has turned into another theater for the culture war. Seems like no matter who I vote for, nothing changes. What's even the point? Hey there, young man. I'm running for office and I'd like your vote. What are some things you'd like to see in this country? Well, I'd like to be able to afford groceries and to go to the doctor too. Everything is so expensive now. Okay, so what I'm hearing is, you want to get rid of all the immigrants. What? No, that's not what I said at all. Oh, I see. You want us to ban gay people. No. Look, can you just do something about the prices? I'm late on rent almost every month. Okay, if you vote for me, I'll promise to lower prices. Thank you. And we're gonna throw 100 kittens into a wood chipper. What? Why would you do that? To own the libs. Okay, I don't want lower prices if you're gonna throw 100 kittens into a wood chipper, but the woke left is gonna be so mad when we do it. Yeah, because that's bad for everybody. Exactly. That's why we need a woman in office. Wouldn't you agree, young man? I mean, yeah, that would be great, but I'm really struggling just to make ends meet on my own. Can you help? In our time of need, our country needs its leaders to step up and do what we do best. Absolutely nothing. Do either of you have any real policies? Young man, I can tell your issues are very important to you, which is why I promise to dedicate $20 billion. Really? To the military. Come on. I try to keep my personal politics out of my videos. So much so that sometimes people think I'm a centrist, but I'm not. If you haven't guessed by now, I'm pretty left-wing on just about everything. So yeah, I'm woke. A lot of people have the idea that seeing both sides of every issue is automatically a good thing. One person could be like, we should throw 100 kittens into a wood chipper. And another could be like, actually we shouldn't. And the enlightened centrist will be like, yeah bro, low-key both sides are valid. It's okay for once in your life to be able to stand up and say, hey, I think this is wrong. I know the culture war constantly forces us to pick sides, but they say if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. I just find it a bit annoying when people sit on the fence in the face of something obviously wrong. On one hand, you could have a burger. Sure, it has tomatoes and pickles that you don't like, but maybe you could just pick them off and still enjoy the burger. And on the other, you have a poop sandwich with pea sauce. And some people would still look at both of those options and go, yeah, both of these are equally bad. It's important to keep an open mind and see things from a different perspective, but you don't need to try to poop sandwich just to see how it tastes. I don't like to get political because I feel like it distracts from my message. I've noticed that when you bring up politics, people start arguing against what they think you believe instead of actually listening to the words you're saying. I actually have a degree in world politics, so I know a lot more than I tend to talk about. I spent a lot of time debating people in college, but I don't really do that anymore. Mainly because I don't find it productive. I mean this in the nicest way possible, but I've noticed that the people who like to debate the most tend to know the least. I think that if you're someone who truly does understand the situation we're in as a generation, you're more concerned with finding solutions rather than proving yourself right. In college, when I was in student government, other more conservative students would sometimes come to me and say, hey, I want to work with you to make this campus more inclusive. Because even though I think a certain way, I can see that things around here aren't fair for everyone. And instead of arguing about which one of us is right, I'd rather work together to be a part of the solution. And I was like, bet. But as people have continued to turn up the heat in this culture war, we've lost the opportunity to do that. And I'm saying opportunity, not ability, because we are still able to work together. But with the culture war constantly making enemies out of our own neighbors, there isn't really room to do so right now. People like to say, if you disagree with them, you can just debate them. But nowadays, it's almost impossible to meaningfully engage with the other side. Many people are dishonest and just want to attack you under the guise of a debate. They aren't interested in understanding your perspective. Instead, they're more concerned with trying to turn you into another enemy. At one debate in college, someone in the audience called me the N-word. My other two panelists also believed the same things I believe. But since I was the only black person on stage, I was the only one attacked because of my race. People shouldn't be attacked physically for their beliefs, but attacking someone's identity because you disagree with them isn't right either. People go out of their way to antagonize others, but then play the victim when that person responds in the same way. It's not very productive when your idea of a debate is going around trying to convince everyone else that they're the problem. Good afternoon, fellas. How we doing? I'm all right. What's going on here? Well, we're just out here trying to have a little respectful debate about the important issues of our time. Care to join us? Sounds interesting. What are we debating? Black people are terrible and we should just get rid of them. Yeah, I'm not doing this. Good luck, bro. We got another triggered liberal. Don't you guys think that sounds a little, I don't know, racist? Not at all. We believe God created us all equally. Yeah, we just think that black people and white people should be separate. Not that they should be treated any less. Okay, I see. You're saying that black people and white people should be separate, but equal. Exactly. But people keep calling us racist for some reason. Yeah, I can't imagine why. You know, they actually tried that before. Really? How did it go? Yeah, some guy named Martin came along and ruined it. Well, he sounds like an awful person. Yeah, can't believe people keep calling you guys racist. The problem with the culture war is that people like to sit around complaining all day, but never put any real action behind it. And that goes even for people I personally agree with. In college, I was a member of the Young Democrats, and our weekly meetings used to be packed with students coming to discuss the issues that were important to us. But we also wanted to be a group that was willing to put action behind our words too. And it's not like they were asking people to go start the revolution tomorrow. It was more like, hey guys, this week we talked about food insecurity. So this weekend, we're gonna go volunteer at the food bank to help feed people in the community. However, most of the time, it was the same handful of people showing up to volunteer. And I understand that when you're a college student, your number one focus is school. It's not like I was always there either. But at what point are you gonna make the things you say you care about a priority? At least just once or twice. As someone on the left, I think sometimes we're a bit out of touch with what the things we believe in look like in reality. Many of us are young, and that makes organizing difficult. So our activism is often contained to online spaces. And while it's great to use our social media presence to keep the conversation going, sometimes we lose sight of our real world goals and start aggressively policing everything in the name of inclusivity. That's called virtue signaling. And ironically, often makes things less inclusive. We all know that one person who's too woke. I've seen it online where people make an enemy out of someone who's genuinely on their side. People were attacking public defense attorneys for doing their job of defending people in court. You can't claim to be for a more equitable society while not understanding the importance of due process. And that's the issue. We want to seem like a good person online while lacking true commitment to the cause. And people on the other side cling to that and use it to discredit you. But I get it. I didn't always have the beliefs that I do now. I'm from the South. My friends used to call me GOP Will because I used to have some pretty conservative beliefs. But then I got hit with the woke mind virus. I'm joking. I was actually patient zero. But as I got older and became more progressive, I had people willing to educate me instead of attacking me because I wasn't woke enough yet. We shouldn't make enemies out of the people who are on the same side as us. If there's one thing I've learned, is that things like misogyny, racism, and homophobia don't belong to a single side. There are people who know how to say all of the right things and still act hateful towards you. And likewise, there are those who might still be learning that don't deserve your hostility. It's important to have principles, but it's also important to understand what making a difference actually looks like too. Recently, there's been a lot of people claiming that Gen Z is shifting to the right, especially the men. But if I can be honest, I don't think this is fully the case. I think Gen Z as a whole is a generation that desires change. The split lies in which direction to go. I think growing up in a more progressive era and then ending up in the situation we're in now, some of us have a desire to return to a simpler time. When I talk to other Gen Z guys who lean a little more to the right, the biggest emotion I get from them isn't hate or even anger, it's fear. They're afraid of the hostility they get from women. They're afraid of being attacked because they made a mistake. They're afraid of losing everything they've worked for because they did something wrong. Everything feels so serious these days, and we should take ourselves and our issues seriously. But I think the shift to the right isn't really 20-year-olds adopting the ideals of their parents. We live in a different world now. Instead, I think some people just want to relax. Even the research shows that it's hard to accurately report on the politics of our generation because so many of us self-censor how we truly feel. I genuinely believe that most of us do support things like inclusion and equality. The average Zoomer is more aware of people's cultural sensitivities than the older generations. But because some of us have questions about those things or a different perspective, we live in fear of being judged. I've seen people get attacked for simply asking a question. However, there are a lot of bad actors, and these people take this desire for simplicity and turn it into prejudice. Men in particular are starting to feel like outcasts in their own communities. There's an idea that men are no longer necessary in society, and thus should be ignored. We've grown up seeing an expansion of privileges for many different groups, more opportunities for this group, greater protections for that group. And what I hear from other men is that they feel like they're falling behind in school, in the job market, even in their social circles. So when the conversation seems like it includes everyone but you, many guys are willing to overlook the bad if it means they get some good. When it feels like nobody keeps a seat open for you at the table, some people end up sitting with the wrong crowd. I'm not making excuses for the bad behavior that comes from the worst of these groups. I think there are already enough people whitewashing the harm being done by these people. And that's another issue. Just like I said, there are people on the left who are out of touch with what they truly believe. The same goes for the right. There are a lot of guys out there who are completely disconnected from the type of person they are in their head versus what they say and do. And I think it's allowed Gen Z to be strung along into ideas they don't fully support. They're telling you that everyone is your enemy and that they are your only ally. They promise you their ideals without showing you their weapons. So you go to war for them, thinking that they're the good guys. They've silenced their weapons with good intentions, so you can't hear the hate in their words. You defend them, not realizing that they're only pushing you further from your peers. You're more concerned about supporting your argument than your character as a person. Hey man, you shouldn't smoke here. There's children around. Well, I was here first. I'm not going anywhere. If the kids don't like it, they can leave. Yeah, but you're smoking at a playground. This is supposed to be a safe space for kids to play, and you're doing something that can harm them. Well, it's the children's fault for playing where I want to smoke. Why should I have to move for them? But you can smoke anywhere in the park. The kids can only play right here. Then we need to ban kids from the park. That way I can smoke in peace. So you'd rather ruin the fun for all of these children than move 10 feet away so everyone can be happy? Exactly. Do you see yourself as a good person? Of course. Why do you ask? No reason. Like most things nowadays, a good chunk of the culture war takes place on social media. And social media is only a caricature of reality. The worst parts are exaggerated and the normal parts are minimized. The problem is, for Gen Z, most of us have become reliant on social media as a genuine source of information. I have people honestly telling me that they got radicalized by triggered SJW compilations on YouTube. Like, seriously? An internet meme radicalized you. Even the mainstream news is providing coverage based on posts you see online. And like a caricature, this leads to people developing a very distorted and misinformed worldview. Since Gen Z is getting their information from the internet, that gives content creators a great deal of influence over the way we think. It shouldn't, but it does. Teens and young adults often look to the creators they admire to not only reaffirm their personal beliefs, but also make sense of the world around them. And this makes content creators some of the biggest agents in the culture war. Although I hope we can all agree that we shouldn't be getting our opinions from people on the internet, I think we value the authenticity of a regular person's perspective on things. The problem though is that many content creators also continue to feed into the culture war. I've noticed that a lot of creators who used to simply cover things like video games, anime, and entertainment have more recently pivoted into covering politics on their respective platforms, introducing their audiences to more of their personal beliefs through their content. So much so that even when they return to covering their usual subjects, their commentary keeps that political context. Times are hard, and we often look to our favorite creators for a break from our problems. But many of these creators are also trying to recruit you to their side of the culture war through bad faith arguments and mean-spirited commentary on everyone who has a different perspective or experience. I just feel like if all of your content is informed by you looking at tweets and Reddit posts, you probably don't have the most well-rounded perspective on the issues you choose to comment on. Like I said, social media is a caricature of reality. It's not the full picture. So when the only conversations you're having are the ones taking place online, it's no surprise that others see you as a misinformed grifter. Another thing is that it's an obvious echo chamber as well. You often see a lot of these same creators sharing audiences and reacting to and providing additional commentary on each other's content. And when one of them gets called out, they often run defense for each other as well. They're on the same team, and they want you to be on it too. And when you sit in these online echo chambers, you don't realize that most people don't think this way. But when you try to push back against them, they endlessly move the goalposts so that you always lose and they always win. And that's the problem with these people, chat. The other side is always making a big deal about minor issues. Nobody cares about the race and gender of a fictional character. They need to stop putting this woke agenda in our video games. Now, on to the real issues. Look at this character, chat. She's a minority and a woman. We should care about the race and gender of a fictional character. They're trying to erase us. Suddenly, representation is very important to me. This wouldn't be that much of an issue if these ideas stayed within these communities. But due to their large influence, their negativity is also affecting others. When you constantly tell your audience that the people they play video games with, watch anime with, and go to school with are their enemy, they go and create division in those spaces too. The same people who try to gatekeep their communities from tourists are often the same people who get offended when you try to stand up against them in your own community. Even our interests become a battleground for the culture war. I've also come to realize that between myself and these creators, our audiences have some overlap. And to be honest, this used to make me nervous. I rarely agree with these people on anything, but despite that, many people, regardless of their beliefs, also resonate with my content. And it's made me realize that I have a unique opportunity as a creator. I'm not here to tell you what to believe or who you should watch, but I have the chance to offer another perspective to the audience that we share. One that hopefully encourages a bit more empathy for those different from you. I used to feel powerless against all of the hate that I see online sometimes, like I had to just sit back and hope for the best. But I realized that if other creators can make videos offering their perspective, maybe I could do the same. It's been a year since I started making these videos talking about the Gen Z experience. And one thing I've learned is that across the world, we're probably more alike than we are different. I never expected that my videos talking about my experiences as a Gen Z adult would be relatable to so many people. One of my biggest privileges as a creator has been interacting with people from all over the world. I remember one night I thought my Twitter was getting botted because I was suddenly getting a bunch of followers from China. But it was because someone re-uploaded my videos on Bilibili. Because even all the way in China, people are coping with being a Gen Z adult. Times are confusing, and we're all struggling in different ways with the same things. I don't make these videos to change anyone's mind or act like I have all of the answers. I don't. I just know that the direction we're going now isn't the way forward. I think that's something we can all agree on. The older generation started the culture war, but we don't have to be the ones to finish it. We don't need to keep endlessly fighting each other while the people with actual power continue to make our lives worse. Older people call us lazy for being tired of the problems they created, and we're often referred to as the worst generation. But maybe that's a good thing. One thing I see being thrown around a lot in this culture war is this idea of good times create weak men and weak men create hard times. Personally, I think this is corny. You are not a Spartan, lil' bro, and I ask for no pickles on my burger. There is no strength in violence, and there is no wisdom in war. We all lose the longer we continue to fight. Giving into the hate is weakness, and good times last when we choose to become better people. True strength lies in kindness, and real wisdom can be found in the desire to understand. Hate will never win. And I'm not here to tell you that the solution to all of our problems is to just love each other either. The culture war is like mud, and there are people who dwell in the mud, and you'll always lose when you try to fight them on their home turf. Mud makes it really hard to move forward, so I think that if we avoid it, we'll get to where we're going a lot faster. Alone, our problems seem almost impossible to solve. But when we work together, the task becomes a lot more manageable. Just don't be someone who only receives help without reaching back and helping others too. We never asked to be in this situation, but whether it keeps getting worse is up to us. So remember, hate will never win. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Peace.